Hey, bro, you know it sucks to be a president? Okay. You want to know why?
No!
Yeah, why? You get the White House, the private plane, a motorcade that shuts down entire highways just so you can grab a burger. People shout name at stadiums. You sign papers and they become law. You walk into a room and everyone stands up. Let's see what's going behind that curtain. Past the salutes and the handshakes and the fancy speeches. To talk about what it's actually like to hold the most powerful job on earth. Spoiler, it's kind of sad. Let's start with the basics. Sleep. You know how doctors say adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Yeah, presidents laugh at that. Sadly, Barack Obama has talked about surviving on 6 hours on a good night. During crises? Less, much less. There's a story from his team about the night of the Osama bin Laden raid. Nobody in that situation room slept properly for 48 hours straight. And that wasn't even the hardest week of his presidency. Here's the thing about the president's schedule. It starts before you wake up. Every morning, the president receives something called the Presidential Daily Brief. It's a classified document prepared overnight by the intelligence community, CIA, NSA, the whole defense departments, summarizing every single threat to the United States from around the world. Wars that might be starting, terrorist plots, pandemics, economic collapses every single day. Imagine waking up every morning and the first thing someone hands you is a document that says, "Here's everything that could go wrong today. Also, good morning." And then your day is already fully booked. We're talking back-to-back meetings from 7 a.m., sometimes past midnight. Foreign leaders flying in with egos and agendas. Congressional leaders who hate each other and you, somehow. Cabinet members managing literal departments the size of small countries. And somewhere in between all of that, people expect you to, think. Jimmy Carter, one of the more detail-oriented presidents in history, was famous for reviewing the schedule for the White House tennis court personally. People made fun of him for it, but that's what total cognitive overload does to a person. You start obsessing over tiny things because your brain desperately needs something it can actually control. Now then, let's talk about privacy. Or rather, the non-existent thing they wish they had. The moment you become president, the Secret Service moves in. And I don't mean they check in on you occasionally. I mean there are agents stationed outside your bedroom door at night. Agents in the car, agents in the building, agents watching the agents. Imagine going to take a piss at night while two big men are watching you. You cannot go anywhere without a full security apparatus. Want to walk? That's a 2-day logistical operation. Visit a friend? That friend now has to be vetted, briefed, and surrounded by big men with earpieces and guns. Want to just drive a car? You can't. Presidents are legally prohibited from driving on public roads while in office. The last sitting president to drive a car on a public road was Lyndon Johnson, who used to terrify guests by driving them around his Texas ranch at full speed, sometimes into a lake. His car was amphibious, he just didn't always warn people. That was the last time any president had that kind of freedom. No driving, no walking to a coffee shop, no spontaneous anything. And then there's the surveillance. Not in a conspiracy way, just in a logistical way. Everything the president does is documented. Every phone call, which even includes a call to their wife/husband. Every memo. White House officers take notes in every room. There are official historians whose job is to record what happens. The Presidential Records Act means that basically everything you do and say as president belongs to the American public eventually. Think about that. Your text messages, your diary, your off-the-cuff comments at dinner. History's problem now, and then there's the media. There are journalists whose entire career is figuring out what you're doing at any given moment. Not just what policies you're pushing, what you're eating, how you look. Whether you seemed tired at that press conference, whether your handshake was firm enough, every single movement analyzed, dissected, and published. You are effectively the most watched person on earth. All the time. Here's something nobody really talks about. The actual job description of president is impossible. Not hard, but literally inhumana, unbearable. You are simultaneously the head of state, the symbolic representative of an entire nation. The head of government, meaning you have to actually run the executive branch, which employs about 4 million people if you include the military. The commander-in-chief of the most powerful military in human history. The chief diplomat responsible for relationships with 195 other countries. The chief legislator pushing your agenda through Congress, and the guy responsible for the economy. That's like 8 jobs held by 8 very different kinds of genius, and you have to do all of them at once while being judged on all of them simultaneously. And let me tell you the thing that makes it extra brutal. Most of the problems that land on your desk have no good solution. There's actually a saying inside the West Wing. If a problem has a good solution, it gets solved before it reaches the president. By the time something gets to the president's desk, every expert below the president has already looked at it and said, "Yeah, we can't figure this out. Send it up." So every single day, the president is dealing with problems that are either unsolvable or where every option available has serious, painful consequences. Do you bomb that weapons facility and risk civilian casualties? Or do you not bomb it and risk a larger attack later? Do you bail out that bank and get accused of helping the rich? Or do you let it fail and tank the economy? Do you sign that compromise bill that gets 60% of what you want? Or do you veto it and get nothing while looking like you can't get things done? There is no win. There is only which loss can you live with. Eisenhower described it perfectly. He said every decision that reaches his desk is a choice between 2 or 3 bad options. Because if any good options existed, it has already been handled. Now, let's get physical for a second, because the presidency takes a huge toll on the human body. Researchers have actually studied this. A 2011 study published in the journal PLOS One looked at the lifespan of world leaders going back centuries, and the findings were pretty grim. U.S. presidents, on average, age significantly faster than comparable men of their era. And you can see it. Go look at any before and after photo series of American presidents. Barack Obama went notably gray by the end of his first term. George W. Bush visibly aged a decade between 2001 and 2008. Abraham Lincoln, who only served about 4 years total, looked like a completely different human being by the time of his second inauguration. The stress of the presidency causes what scientists call accelerated cellular aging. The constant cortisol, that's the stress hormone, literally shortens your telomeres. Your telomeres are the protective caps on your DNA. When they shorten, you age faster. The presidency is basically a machine that runs your cells at double speed. And the diet isn't helping either. Presidential schedules don't exactly leave room for a balanced meal plan. State dinners are lavish but erratic. Travel across time zones destroys circadian rhythm. There's a reason most presidents, even the fit ones, often look exhausted. Their body clock is completely destroyed. Bill Clinton famously loved McDonald's to the point where the Secret Service had a nickname for his burger runs. And then he had quadruple bypass surgery after leaving office. Coincidence? Probably not entirely. The job will take years off your life. That's not genetics. That's physical and mental harassment. Okay, so now you're sleep-deprived, under constant surveillance, aging at double speed, and solving only unsolvable problems. Surely at least people like you, right? Haha, cute. No. Let's talk about approval ratings. The modern presidency is a masterclass in being disliked. Want to know a fun fact? No U.S. president in the modern polling era has ever maintained an approval rating above 70% for their entire term. The highest sustained approval in modern history was George W. Bush right after 9/11. He hit 90%. Within 2 years, it was back in the 50s. By the end of his second term, he was in the low 30s. The average presidential approval rating across modern history hovers around 50%, meaning at any given moment, roughly half the country thinks you're doing a bad job. Every single day of your presidency. And it's not just the public. Congress hates you, even members of your own party, because you're the one person they can all blame when things go wrong. Foreign leaders smile to your face and complain about you in private. Your own cabinet members write memoirs about how difficult you were to work with. Abraham Lincoln was openly mocked by newspapers of his era. They called him an idiot, and a dictator, sometimes in the same article. Thomas Jefferson, one of the most brilliant men ever to hold the office, was accused of being an atheist, a coward, and a French spy simultaneously. John Adams, the second president, founding father, also a brilliant lawyer, the guy who helped build the country, lost his re-election so badly that he left Washington before Jefferson's inauguration, just to avoid watching his own humiliation. You can be genuinely, historically excellent at this job and still be hopeless while doing it. That's not an edge case. That's standard. So, till now, everything we've talked about, kind of deal-breaker stuff, huh? But manageable for the right kind of ambitious, thick-skinned person. But here's the part that nobody talks about enough. The part that actually breaks people. Real decisions about real human lives. Every day. When the president authorizes a military strike, real people die. Sometimes the right people. Sometimes not. When the president decides whether or not to deploy federal resources during a natural disaster, the speed of that decision determines how many people survive. When the president signs or vetoes a healthcare bill, that decision plays out in millions of individual lives. People who get coverage, people who don't, people who live, people who die. And you have to make those decisions with incomplete information, under time pressure, while your advisors disagree and the media is already reporting on what you're about to do before you've decided. Former Defense Secretary Robert Gates wrote about watching multiple presidents face the moment of ordering military action. He said that every single one of them, regardless of party or personality, carried the weight of that differently afterward. Some became quieter. Some became more religious. Some became obsessive about details as a way of coping. Jimmy Carter has spoken about lying awake at night during the Iran hostage crisis, running the scenarios over and over. 52 Americans were held hostage for 444 days. He spent every one of those days knowing that a wrong decision could get them killed. They were eventually freed, but one rescue attempt failed and 8 American servicemen died in a helicopter crash in the desert. He carries that, still. Decades later. That is the reality underneath all the pomp and power. At 3 a.m., when the briefing comes in and an aide is standing in the doorway of the residence, you're not the most powerful person in the world. You're just a person trying not to make a decision that kills people you can't save. And this is where the question arises. So why does anyone do it? Honestly, that's the most interesting question. Because some people genuinely believe, with every fiber of themselves, that they can get it right. That they're the one who can thread the needle, solve the unsolvable things, hold up under the pressure, take the hits, and still move the country forward. And sometimes, they're not wrong. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the policies they push forward lift millions of people out of poverty, or end a war, or build something that lasts 100 years. But it costs them. It always costs them. The gray hair, the broken sleep, the compromised relationships, the permanent surveillance, the public hatred, the private weight. There's an old quote, nobody's totally sure who said it first, but it gets passed around Washington, that the presidency doesn't build character. It reveals it. All the pressure just strips away everything else and shows you exactly what someone is made of. And whether you love or hate any given president, you have to at least respect that they stepped into one of the most brutally difficult jobs in human history. A job that will take years off your life, steal your privacy, saddle you with impossible decisions, and guarantee that roughly half the country thinks you're doing it wrong. All for a salary of $400,000 a year. Which, by the way, works out to about $45 an hour. So next time you're having a rough day at work, just remember, at least nobody's handing you a document at 6 a.m. listing everything that might go wrong with the entire planet today. I'm out. Subscribe if you want more of this. See you next time.